Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today we're talking about the video game Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth for the Nintendo Switch. Now this game originally came out, I want to say around 2016, and they recently did a remastered version that came with this game and also a second game that came out like 2 years later. It's not an expansion, it's kind of like its own standalone story, but it does take place in the same universe. I think they use like the same game engine, the same assets, that kind of stuff. So I want to reiterate that I only played Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. I didn't play the second one, just because the game is so long. So just going through some of my past Digimon experiences, I never have played a Digimon video game before, but I was actually pretty into the TV show. I remember watching all of the first season. I had my own Digivice where you could like choose one of the 8 original Digimon. Tentamon was my favorite, I think. That's the name of the bug guy who turns into Kabuterimon. And I also was really into the Digimon movie. I thought that was such a well-done movie, and I am, like, playing through this, I was really tempted to start watching the TV show and the movie. I'm just not sure where I could easily access that, or if I would have to, like, really hunt it down to try and buy the season or something. I'm not sure. If you know a good way to watch these shows, let me know in the comments down below. Digimon was one of the few things that my older brother and I actually bonded over. That and Pokemon, but like everyone bonded over Pokemon, but I have good memories of watching the TV show with our Digivices together on Fox 4 Kids TV. It was like Fox had its own little like children's TV section, like right when right after school got out, they would play shows like Magic School Bus, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, those kinds of things. And I remember watching those shows with my older brother a lot. But yeah, never played any Digimon game before, and I was always kind of curious about playing them, but they were always just more under my radar. I remember there being one for the PlayStation 1, where you had, I think, just one Digimon follow you around, and I don't remember much else other than that. I think it was turn-based, but who can say? So this game actually takes place not in the Digi world, but actually in Tokyo. And I gotta be honest, I was kind of hoping, when I was thinking of a Digimon game, I kind of was hoping I'd be like one of the chosen 8, and I get to explore the Digi world, and I get like one Digimon assigned to me or something like that. It kind of would make that like relationship feel a little more meaningful. I kind of want to stray away from comparing this to Pokemon, because the two are actually very pretty different. I think the only similar things are collecting monsters and like turn-based battles, really, but like all the other mechanics are actually pretty different. So I kind of do want to stray away from comparing this to Pokemon, but I probably will end up doing that for the whole video, so I apologize for that. But at the beginning of the game, they give you 3 different options, and they say like, hey, choose your Digimon that you want to have. And I remember spending like 10 minutes like, oh man, which of these 3 Digimon do I want? And I remember like doing research and stuff like that. And it really doesn't matter, because the Digimon change forms so often that you're going to be able to achieve any form of Digimon that those 3 Digimon could possibly Digivolve to anyway, so it really isn't a big deal which one they choose. I thought it was kind of weird that they make you even choose one of the 3 Digimon because of how fluid Digimon actually are. Like, I can't even keep track of the one that I chose. I can't even, like, remember where that one ended up, because, I'll do my best to explain how Digivolving works, and if I mess it up, then I apologize. But so Digimon, they can Digivolve, and they are stronger because of it, but they can also de-Digivolve back to a previous form, as long as you have seen that previous Digimon before. You can Digivolve as long as you meet the prerequisites. If you meet certain stats, like, oh, they have to be this level, and they have to have this much speed, and, you know, like, you just have to meet all the stats. And so you're probably wondering, like, okay, why would I ever want to de-Digivolve? And because certain stats will carry over when you de-Digivolve. If you think this sounds confusing, just you wait. It gets a lot more confusing. So you have a certain stat called ABI, and that raises every time you digivolve and de-digivolve. In order to achieve some of the mega form of digi-evolution, you need to have a certain number of ABI. So you need to have digivolved and de-digivolved plenty of times. Not to mention, whenever you change forms on your Digimon, they accrue different abilities, and those different ability typings are actually pretty important. One caveat to digivolving and de-digivolving is you lose all the levels that you've acquired. So you actually go back to level 1. I know it's actually really something that you have to consider before you digivolve or de-digivolve, and I know it sounds kind of like tedious, like, oh, I'm just gonna have to grind levels, but there actually are a couple of systems that make it pretty easy to level up. And I'm not sure if this is in the previous version, but when I played on the Switch, it seemed like the game time was still going. It's still, like, my final game time playing this game said I had played for about 400 hours, which I know for a fact isn't true, even though sometimes it felt like it. But I think the game clock keeps running even when my Switch is in sleep mode. So they have a thing called a farm, and when your Digimon are in the farm, they will accrue experience. And I'm not sure in the previous versions for like the PlayStation 4, if you turned your PlayStation off, if they would still accrue levels, but it worked in my favor that way, because when I digivolve or de-digivolve, you just put your Digimon in the farm and just leave it on, like put it to sleep overnight, and when you get back on, your Digimon's going to be at least like level 30 or 40, you know, it's really not that big of a deal. Also, you can battle with up to 3 Digimon at once, but you can also keep like 10 additional Digimon in your party at all times, and they accrue experience along with the 3 Digimon that battled. So you're just constantly cycling through all these different forms of Digimon and all these different kinds of Digimon, and it really keeps the game fresh, but at the same time, I really didn't form any special bond like I would a certain Pokemon, you know? Like, I only found out much later into the game that you could name your Digimon, but at that point it's just like, what's the point? I'm just gonna use whatever one is the best, like the best Digivolution, the highest level, that kind of stuff. I didn't really care about each one until I'd say when I got to like the last 2 chapters, and I was happy with the final 3 Digimon that I have. They were all mega, super powerful, that kind of stuff. So by that point, I did get attached to my party, but you know, for most of the game, you're just moving Digimon around all the time. Like, it's no big deal. So how you acquire Digimon, you actually get a lot of Digimon flowing into your like PC box, I'll call it. It doesn't work like a Pokeball. You're not gonna throw a Digiball at a Digimon and capture them. How the Digimon capture rate goes is whenever you encounter a Digimon, a certain meter will fill. And when that meter's all the way full, you can just get a Digimon egg and you hatch and the Digimon comes out of the egg. So super high level, powerful Digimon, the meter will fill up slowly. So you have to encounter quite a lot of Digimon in order to acquire that certain Digimon, whereas like little baby puny Digimon, they'll fill up after you see like maybe 3 of them. And raising up those is actually, I think, more beneficial than just trying to start out with a high level Digimon, because of the whole like raising your ABI stats and getting all the different move sets and stuff like that. So I'd say when you're about halfway through, you have already all the Digimon that you could possibly want, because there's so many like different branching paths to get any kind that you would like. If you just do the research, you can figure out the path your Digimon needs to go in order to turn into that Digimon form. It's kind of funny because some of the Digimon forms that you get, even pretty early in the game, were like super difficult Digimon, like back in the TV show. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but the first season, the main antagonist is a Digimon called Devimon, and he's just like this foreboding, dark, like horned Digimon that's super evil, and you just can get him, I want to say maybe like 20 minutes in the game. So you're just battling with Devimon, like someone that you would consider one of the strongest Digimon as far as the up to the points that I have watched Digimon. And in the Digimon movie, the main antagonist in that is like this. He eventually digivolves into this like spider thing that like crawls and consumes data, and he's like super powerful. And War Greymon and Were Garurumon had to like combine into Omnimon to defeat this spider thing. It was a whole thing, and if you've never seen Digimon, I'm probably just spouting nonsense to you right now, but you can get him actually pretty early in the game too. So it's kind of funny just using these or what I thought to be super powerful Digimon, but they're like not even one of the strongest forms. And maybe in the future Digimon shows, like those guys are just paled in comparison because there's probably like a power level that just keeps going up. So it's like Devimon, yeah, he's weak sauce compared to us now. We've gotten so strong. The problem with this like leveling Digivolve, de-Digivolve system and resetting your level is I'm never really sure if I'm like not over leveled compared to my enemies or under leveled. It was kind of hard because like you couldn't see the level of your opponent Digimon, and if you're not sure what Digi form they are, because they all have different names like Ultimate and Mega and Champion and things like that. So if you're not sure what tier of Digivolving your enemy is, you're never really sure if you're the right level, the right power that you should be at. Because sometimes I would just do like absolutely no damage to the guy, even if it was like a super effective move. It sometimes would do just like a little tiny tick of health, but it always seemed like they wouldn't do that much damage to me either. So I was never really sure, like, am I too strong for this? Even the very final boss, I never died. I never had a game over or anything like that. Granted, sometimes I would have to use a lot of revives and potions to get by, but I never had a game over. And I was never really sure if I was just too strong for this, like maybe if I was abusing this farm system while putting my Switch to sleep. And I've learned from my most recent Pokemon experience that it's a lot better to play these types of games when you're the same level as your opponent, because you actually have some sort of struggle. You actually have to think about your moves rather than just like one-shotting everything. And particularly near the end of the game, I felt like I was starting to do a ton more damage than I should be. So I think eventually I did get over leveled, but for the most part, I was trying to stay even with the opponents. How this game typically works is it kind of reminded me of Mega Man Battle Network, where you're in the real world, you're in Tokyo, you're trying to solve cases, and there's not really there's no random encounters or anything like that. But in Mega Man Battle Network, you could plug into electronical devices and then go to the network, and then that's where like your random encounters would happen. That's where your turn-based combat would happen. And it was the same thing here. When you're in the network, when you're plugged into online, it's called Eden. That's where your random encounters will happen with Digimon. So it kind of was giving me some pretty big flashbacks to Mega Man in that aspect. I've heard a lot of comparisons to Persona. I've never played any Persona game. I do want to just say that these type of genre, like this type of JRPG, really isn't usually my style, but I do like to try them out from time to time. I'd say the only exception to mainly like all turn-based combat games would be Pokemon, and that's only because I have so much nostalgia for that franchise and it's just so easily accessible. This game, it's just like a high barrier of entry, and that's how I feel about a lot of these JRPGs. I want to say the first fourth of the game, you're just kind of like reading walls of text telling you like the mechanics of the game and trying to really teach you the game, and you really have to like learn a lot in order to get fully involved. I want to say I didn't really understand what I was doing until I was about halfway through the game, and that's like 2 weeks in worth of stuff. Granted, I was doing like side quests and things like that, but I want to say there's 20 chapters in total. I was up to chapter 10, and that's when I fully understood, like, okay, this is what I want to be working on. I want to get this type of Digimon, so I want to do this. Okay, now I understand the whole mechanic of the game. I understand that the type advantages, and the type advantages are actually kind of more simple than Pokemon. I actually kept trying to do super effective moves against certain Digimon and they wouldn't work because like then I was like, oh wait, that's only in Pokemon. That's not like a Digimon thing. Digimon works where you have a triangle, and I can't remember the names of each type, but there's 3 different types of Digimon. There's like a cube icon, there's like a teardrop icon, and there's a sun icon, and it's a weakness triangle like that. That's what you really want to focus on. And with your party of 3 Digimon, you wanted to have one of each, or at least I did. I felt like most of the time I would encounter these cube type Digimon, and I don't know if that was chance or not, so the sun usually was like the super effective type. Now there's also elemental super effective triangles, and there's 2 separate ones. There's your typical grass is good against water, water is good against fire, fire is good against grass, and then you also have electricity, rock, and wind. So those 3 triangle type advantages are what you needed to remember. But it was funny because I kept trying to use like a water move against the rock type Digimon, and it would just be normal damage. Like, what the heck? That's supposed to be super effective. Oh wait, that's Pokemon. So that was, you just combat things like that. You gotta like really wrap your head around. But once you do have a mastery of it, I think this game really does suck you in. It's just like one of those cases where if you're interested in putting in the time, you're gonna have a good time with this game. Or even if you're like really adept at JRPGs, I think you're gonna have a really good time with this game as well. Like, you can probably just hop right in, especially if you've played games such as Persona before. I don't think you need to learn a lot. You can just jump right in and enjoy the story for what it is and enjoy the Digimon and everything like that. Now, if you're like me and you're not quite big on the JRPGs, it's a high barrier of entry. Just know the commitment that you're getting yourself into. There's a lot of talking, a lot of reading. A lot of the times I feel like I was reading a book because it's just like dialogue boxes all the time. Until the very end, I'm just like, half of this game is just reading what people are saying. One cool thing about this game was it was all voice acted, but unfortunately it was all in a different language, and there's no way to switch it to English voice acting. Pardon my naivete, but I think it was in Japanese. I'm really not quite sure though, so if it's in Chinese or something like that, I apologize for being a dumb American, but it is in a different language and I couldn't understand it, but at least it conveyed the type of emotion that the character was speaking. So I definitely left it on. I read a couple of people just turned that immediately off because like there's no English voice acting, so what's the point? But I did appreciate that most of it was voice acted because there's a lot of dialogue and reading, so it at least kept things a little more alive and energetic. The game length itself is just so long. I mentioned before that my game time said it was about 400 hours, and while that is certainly not true, it took me like a month to play through this game. Like, I feel like by this time I'm a Digimon master, but I have sold my soul to Digimon. I eat, breathe, and sleep Digimon, if that makes, like, I sold my soul to Devimon, and I am a Digimon master because of it, but I have definitely invested a ton of time into this, and I was just this weekend like, okay, I'm just going to play through the last 2 chapters. I knew I needed to get to chapter 20, and I was on chapter 18. I'm just going to finally finish this game. And the funny thing about it is this was only 1 out of 2 games that came in the package. And by the time I was finished with this game, I gotta say, my cursor was kind of hovering over that other Digimon game, because by now I have mastered the mechanics, I get the game, like, I know it, and I do enjoy finally getting those, like, way cool mega form Digimon, like, knowing what I need to do in order to achieve that. And it kind of was interesting, like, it was a kind of interesting idea to be able to start over with a whole new story, if that makes sense. But I gotta say, I don't think I'm going to play the other game for a long time, just because it really is such a commitment, guys. And I do want to play other games from time to time, but I think I will be moving to the second game sometime in the nearish distant future. Maybe like I don't know, maybe like sometime in 2021 I could see myself pulling out Digimon again and just playing the other story. It's such a good bang for your buck. If you consider the money you spend on a game like this and the amount of time and the amount of gameplay that you get out of a game like this, it's a really good bang for your buck. The story itself was actually, like, it was lengthy, but it was kind of fun. It kind of reminded me of the older Digimon TV shows in that aspect, where it's like there's episodic nature to it with an overarching plot, and I think that kind of storytelling is the best for like a TV show or a video game such as this. It was kind of like there's definitely some Asian tropes, I'll say, to the storytelling, and the like character reactions and dialogue and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to say that the game is really sexist, but I'm going to say that it certainly is culturally different to what American media is putting out there. Like the women, I kind of was rolling my eyes because they're always like scandalously dressed. You're basically like a private investigator's assistant, and your boss, the private investigator, is just wearing this shirt where you can see like the sides of her like whole boobs. And you know, your friend is just wearing like this dress, and she just has this like strip going all the way up her side, and like so many fishnets on the female characters. And I just think that besides your boss, who is pretty cool and collective and like really in control of the situation, like most of the other female characters are kind of annoying, just kind of like, you know, wacky, just kind of there to be sexualized. I don't know, maybe I'm just inferring something from this, and I understand. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm just saying it's culturally different than what a typical American video game would be. It's more it's just got more like anime tropes to it. There was a couple of these cool cutscenes that were more in a traditional anime style. They looked more hand-drawn. There wasn't much of them, unfortunately. I want to say there was only like 6 or 7 5 to 10 second clips, but they looked really cool, and I really wish I had more cutscenes like that rather than using like the in-game models. I did a decent amount of side quests in this game. You can take on cases because you're like a private investigator assistant. The side quests themselves were actually pretty decent. Like, they were pretty well written. They actually all had a story. It's not just go here, fight this guy, but there's like a good reason why you're going there and fighting the guy. You know, the side quests actually did have some thought put into them. Well, guys, that's my Digimon experience. I'm sure there's I was trying to think of a lot more that I wanted to talk about with this game, but I've been playing it so long, I think I've forgotten some of the talking points. So maybe I should start taking notes or something as I play through the game, like good talking points. It's just such a long game, and eventually I did have fun with it, but just be warned that if you're going into it not typically playing these games, it's a high barrier of entry. I think concluding everything, all the talking points that I had, I would give this game a 3 out of 5. It's a good game. If you're not familiar with this game, you will probably not like it. If you're familiar with these types of games, I think you're going to have an amazing time. It's a really good game if you like this type of genre. Well, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here all week, all year, for the rest of my life. Let me know if you have any experiences playing this game. I'd love to hear from you guys. That should be all for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye! Change into digital champions to save the digital world.